This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On Air.
And you've joined the OI podcast. Welcome! The Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences podcast. Conversations with experts from the worlds of arts, sciences and mataranga Māori. Brought to you by the Otago Institute. Kia ora, no mai, haere mai. And for those of you new to the OI podcast, I'm Dr Barb, a quantitative ecologist with a background in modelling climate change, biodiversity, conservation prioritisation and SciComm with a PhD in botany from Otago Whakaihu Waka, the University of Otago. And
Kia ora, I'm Trudi and I've got none of that stuff. I'm just a jack of all trades and a master of none, but I've just come along for the ride.
It's not true at all. She knows everything about everything. She's one of the highest IQs I've ever met. But hey.
Yeah. Some of us have got to operate in the dark. And
today we are so lucky to have joining us in the studio Helen Jack, Senior Scientist, Environment Canterbury, a geological hazard analysis scientist. Thank you so much for coming along, Helen.
That is okay, Dr. Barb. It is a pleasure to be with you guys today.
And we are going to have so many amazing things to talk about. Now, we're going to start off with just like letting everybody know your general credentials. Where are you coming from? You know, what's your background? And then we're going to move into what are geological hazards and what a geological hazard analysis scientist does. And then a little bit about a couple of your more recent projects and where you're going and how passionate you are about them. And within that, we hope to work in, if someone would like to follow in your footsteps, how might they do that? Starting
big
off,
shoes to fill.
Big shoes to fill, yes. Yeah. Now, over to you.
That's a lot, Dr. Barb.
It is. I just thought I'd give kind of a
How long have we got?
We have 56 minutes.
Righto.
It goes really quickly. And we don't always answer all the questions that I've posited at the start of the show, I must fess up.
That is okay.
It can be a bit of a journey.
Yeah.
A conversational
what we will
journey.
do is after the show, we will nip along to the Blue Cockatoo, which is just around the corner, and we'll have a gelato or cocktail.
Oh, my.
And I'll ask you live on Facebook what was the one thing that you wanted to say but you didn't get time to.
Righto. Okay. Thank you.
There you go.
Kia ora, everybody. So my name, as Dr. Barb has said, is Helen Jack, and I am a geohazard scientist for Environment Canterbury Regional Council, which...
You're a long way from... perhaps you're at home and a long way from work, I'm not sure.
How do you work for Environment Canterbury, but you're based here in Dunedin?
That is a very good question. So I should, you wanted my credentials.
Yes, go with the credentials.
And then we'll get on to that.
We'll get on to that.
So I studied geology at the University of Canterbury when I was a young nipper.
Yeah. As an undergrad, was that a BSc? Yes,
I did a Bachelor of Science in Geology, and then I was convinced by my superiors that I should stay on and do a master's degree as well. So I did a master's degree in engineering geology, which at the time we liked to call common sense and coloured pencils. So that appealed to me.
It does age us a little bit though, doesn't it? Because I immediately know what you mean by that.
Oh, well, yeah, because I mean, lots of people maybe wouldn't know what coloured pencils are these days. But I coloured in my thesis maps with coloured pencil, and by golly, it was satisfying. So
did you stick between the lines?
Oh, God, I stuck between the lines, Trudy. Good Lord. Sort of questions that.
I mean, that's transferable skills,
yeah,
though.
But I like
totally.
Dark lines with shading in between. Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah. So
it's about getting a uniform colour across the same piece.
Yes, this was.
Really.
I mean, this is a geological map we're talking about here, Trudy. So you can't.
They can be pretty.
Oh,
they can definitely be pretty.
Absolutely pretty, but you need a nice, consistent, uniform colour.
Right. Okay.
But can I say, just on that, there is a lot of work. I mean, it sounds trivial and we're sort of making fun about colouring pencils, but it does... There's actually a lot of method and training and experience I guess, as well, that goes into which colours go next to each other and making sure that the map is legible and that the colours aren't misleading and that it looks aesthetically pleasing as well.
Yes, although in geology world, there are prescribed colours for different rock units.
Because you got that book, haven't you? There's a book or...
I'm getting odd looks
Past
here.
Trudy, I don't know quite what the official book of. There probably is an official book of.
But who decides what colours get what bedrocks get what colours?
I actually couldn't tell you who prescribed
we do
that.
know. I know.
But okay, Trudy might
but I
know
have to think about it.
It's all done on computer now, isn't it, with layers and
Well, it is now. But at the time, I was having to use, and we still do, use the colours that were prescribed for different rock units, and I had a lot of what we would call late quaternary gravels in my maps.
Where were your maps? Where were your maps of?
That's a good question. Franz Josef.
Oh, fantastic!
I
that's
know.
exciting. So, were you actually doing field work out at Franz Josef?
I
That's
was. So
exciting,
I
isn't it?
said to my thesis supervisor, I don't really mind what I do for a thesis, but I would like to hang out on the West Coast.
Right.
So this was, the University of Canterbury. So he found me a thesis project looking at natural hazards in the Franz Josef area.
Right. So when you say the Franz Josef area, how sort of big an area are we looking at, and are we concentrating on the glacier or the town?
So my map was pretty much had the town in the middle of it, and to the south it went down to the glacier, and to the north it went up sort of halfway to the coast, you might say. So, I did a lot of mapping in that area, looking at the Alpine Fault and looking at the different, the behaviour of the rivers, I suppose, in the past, and the glaciers and the ages of the different gravel deposits there. And see, gravels are coloured in yellow.
Oh, right, so the whole map was yellow?
Well, not entirely, because there's a lot of schist there as well. So there was quite a bit of purple.
Purple and yellow go so nicely together.
And there was a little granite knob.
Which is?
Just a Canavan's knob, and that was
I was
pink.
going for the colour.
Pink. So there was this nice little pink circle right in the middle of the yellows. But the problem is that when I went to buy my coloured pencils to colour in my maps...
There's only one yellow?
Well, there wasn't one yellow, but I tell you what, I was quickly running out of yellows because there were maybe 5 yellows, and I had a lot of different yellows I needed. So that was a issue for me.
A challenge.
That was one of the challenges I overcame
isn't it?
doing my thesis.
Can I go back to the thesis itself?
You can.
So you said you had a little knob of granite and then a whole bunch of schist and then the gravel from the river. Can you just talk us through how that comes to be there? Why is the granite there?
So the granite is on the Australian tectonic plate,
And what
which
makes
is on the
granite?
western side.
Is that volcanic?
Granite is not quite volcanic. So granite is a igneous rock, so that means that it's formed from lava.
Right, which is what I think of as volcanic.
Magma under the ground. But it sort of has come up, but it hasn't popped out of the ground surface. So it's not volcanic. It's stayed under the ground and it's cooled down really slowly so that you get nice big crystals forming.
Right.
Some of it's really super pretty.
And that's why it makes great kitchen bench tops.
Indeed,
Right.
yes.
But it's igneous.
It is igneous, yes.
Which means that it comes from that sort of magma, volcanic, anything that's volcanic magma to do with lava, that sort of stuff.
Lava's what it is once it's come out of the ground.
Right.
So when it's in the ground, it's magma.
It's magma. So anything that's magma derived. Is that right?
If it hasn't come out of the ground.
Yes, okay,
yes.
cool. Right, so
glad we cleared that up.
Yeah. But you have to have that kind of volcanic activity somewhere in the region, right?
Yeah.
To have
but
those sorts of stones.
These are very old granites, and
Right,
don't ask me to tell you how old, because it
No,
was
I'm not
30
going to
years
ask.
ago and I can't remember.
I'm not going to ask you how old, but I'm going to ask you if that's so. Granite has to be beneath the ground. Is that right?
Well, that's
when it's formed.
When it's formed.
But a lot of granite sticks out, and that's all
Indeed.
weathering, is it?
Well, it's been pushed up.
It's been pushed up.
Yeah, and so then...
And the other less hard stuff around it's been kind of washed away or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
In the simplest terms, yes.
We're going for simple here. So,
Yeah. So
Not wrong. Correct me
no.
when I'm wrong.
No. So in the simplest terms,
Yep.
you've got granite on the western side of the
Yeah.
Alpine Fault there, on the Australian tectonic plate, and then you've got schist on the eastern side, which is the Pacific tectonic plate.
Right.
And that's why they're close together. They weren't formed close together, but they've been moved close together, the schist and the granite, through the movement of the fault over millions of years.
So what's the schist derived from? What makes schist originally?
Yeah, well, that's a good question too. So that used to be, the schist here used to be greywacke, which we also see in the Southern Alps.
Yeah, and you see people talking about greywacke and schist in the same sort of sentence.
So greywacke is it's like a hard sandstone.
Yeah,
and
so that's metamorphic. That's right. No,
so the greywacke isn't. Some of it is a little bit, but
generally, we'll go generally. Yeah.
Generally, the greywacke is just a hard sandstone,
right?
Or sandstone and mudstone. And then what's happened is it's been buried deep underneath the ground where it's really hot and there's a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
and so then that ends up changing the rock in a way, and that creates the schist.
Right.
So what you find in the Southern Alps is that you have varying degrees of that metamorphosis. So the greywacke sort of grades into...
So it starts off as mud or
schist.
Sand.
Yeah.
And then it gets compressed and heated and then it metamorphoses.
Yeah.
Just like a butterfly.
Indeed.
But not in a chrysalis.
No.
In the Southern Alps.
Yes.
Into schist.
Well, yes. Yes, we'll go for that. Yeah.
You're hesitating there.
No. Well, just...
For brevity.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. No, that's a good summation. And then you've had the Southern Alps being pushed up with the Alpine Fault, and then a lot of rainfall, obviously, on the West Coast. On the West Coast, as we know, and so that creates a lot of erodes away a lot of that schist and creates lots of gravel, which the glaciers push down and the rivers push out, and so you have lots and lots of gravel.
So does the gravel get pushed right out into the Tasman?
Yeah.
Quite a long way? Or
are we still calling that body of water the Tasman? I thought we'd changed the name of that. I thought we were calling it Aotearoa Sea now. Sorry, I'm being totally facetious.
Oh,
no,
that's news to me.
No, it was a cartoon I saw on the weekend.
Right.
There's some things I don't think we need to claim.
No, that's true.
Why would leave the Tasman to the Australians?
Well, I mean, it's just a bit weird, isn't it? How bodies of water get not all of them, but I just feel it's weird naming them after really long dead white men.
But it's interesting because I thought Tasman was an Australian reference, but no, of course it's not.
No.
Yeah.
Long dead white men. And I just think, what's Tasman got to do with that piece of water? Why can't that piece of water have its own name that's something to do with the piece of water?
Well, it probably does, but it just hasn't told us yet.
Yeah, maybe. I don't. Sorry, it's a complete distraction. It's a rabbit hole if ever there was one.
But how far does gravel get washed out?
Well, not being a marine scientist, Trudi,
we've got to move into marine science.
Out of scope. That's a question.
Out of scope for me. And I mean, let's just remember, this was 30 years ago.
We're on the old stuff.
This is ancient history for me.
Can I ask a really simple question? When you're saying gravel, what's the gravel made of? Is that made of schist?
The
that's
gravel
been
is made
down?
of the schist, yes.
Right.
Well, you're not listening. She said that just before.
No, she was talking about the schist.
She said that the rain.
Schist is purple and gravel is yellow.
Yeah, but the rain impacts the schist to gravel.
But it wasn't clear that it was schist that it was impacting. Anyway, thank you very much. That's a very nice summary of how that works. Now, when you go out and do field work, one last question.
Yes.
When you say you go out and do field work, are you just going out and looking at stuff and writing down little lines on a notebook, or are you digging big holes?
That's a good question. When I was doing my field work back in the day, I pretty much was going out and looking at things and mapping them on a map.
Right.
Did you take a rock hammer and take samples?
I did have a rock hammer.
Yeah.
I wasn't really taking samples though, but it was more just for
Did you have
rocks.
surveying things to say where you were?
No, so I didn't. But scientists who study the Alpine Fault do drill big holes into it, but I have not done that myself.
Cool. Just
That's a topic for another time because you could talk about that for an hour.
Yeah, we could do. Hey, let's move on from past history into what you're doing right now. GeoHazard scientist.
Yes.
Helen Jack, what is a GeoHazard scientist?
So what a geohazard scientist does, or what I like to think that a geohazard scientist does in my role. So I work for Environment Canterbury, which is the regional council in Canterbury.
It's our ORC, our Otago Regional Council.
It's equivalent of the Otago Regional Council.
Yeah,
yes.
But for Canterbury.
Yes, and so I used to live in Christchurch.
Right.
And I moved down here.
Saw the light, moved to Dunedin.
Something like that. And my employers wanted me to keep working for them. And so I said, oh, well, I'll give it a whirl. This was 14 years ago.
Oh, right.
Pre-COVID. And I said, well, I'll give it a whirl, but, maybe just work for them remotely for a couple of years. And 14 years later, here I am.
Still working for them?
Still working for them remotely.
Well, that's good, isn't it, though?
Yeah. I'm so lucky to be able to do it. It's not ideal working away from my team, but COVID has made things actually easier for me in terms of people being able to work.
It just upskilled
remotely.
everybody in being able to remotely work,
Exactly.
I think. It was like a crash course in can we do Teams and Zoom and all those things.
And you can. And so it doesn't matter so much now that I'm not there, even though it would be nice if I was there, but it's a bit of a commute to do on a daily basis. Yeah. So in my job as a geoscientist there is I pretty much work as a translator. So I take geological information or geological hazard information that either we've produced or we farm out a bit of our work to other researchers, and I take that information and I translate it into useful knowledge for the likes of land use planning, emergency management planning, public education, things like infrastructure planning as well.
Yep.
So I kind of feel like I'm
so you're sort of halfway between those.
Yeah,
those two
I have
pure
feet
research and applied
Yes.
people in the community.
Yes, and I have a foot in both camps, I suppose you could say, and I always knew that that's what I wanted to do.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about GeoHazards?
You can.
And we can just list those off, because I've got a note here that your particular interests are tsunamis and earthquakes.
Yes.
Which, of course, we all think about, particularly in, whenever anyone says Canterbury, we think earthquake. Now, pre-earthquake, we didn't think earthquake.
No.
Very bizarre.
People did not.
But there's also landslides.
Yes.
What other geohazards
Well,
are there?
I mean, that's really the ones I focus on,
Right.
the earthquakes, tsunamis and landslides. Yeah.
And that's kind of, when you say so the work you're doing is sort of not necessarily quantifying, but communicating the risk profile of different places.
Yeah. So, for example, one of the things I have done a lot of in the last few years is getting tsunami inundation modelling. So we've had...
see, I always think we should have better inundation models, so I'm glad that you're doing that.
Right.
Tell us
Well,
all
there you
about
go.
it. Because I always think, it should be possible, tell me if I'm wrong and it's not possible, to just model, and this might be exactly what you're doing, to just model, if a tsunami happens here, where's going to get hit? How big does it have to be in order to wash this bit? If I'm 25 metres up and living just behind the pub at Keary's Bay, what's my risk profile for having a tsunami hit me?
And so, in theory, yes, you can do that. And we've got very experienced modellers in this country at Earth Science New Zealand.
Right.
The former NIWA and GNS Science, they both brought tsunami modellers to that new organisation.
Right. And have they put up big maps in places?
No, because that's not their job. That's your district council or your city council's job.
So you interpret that data.
So that's my job, is to say to the modellers, right, I want you to model this, and this scenario for me. And then they give me that information, and then I use that information to do things like delineating tsunami evacuation zones for our communities.
Yeah. So do we have those for Otago?
Yes, you do.
Oh, sorry, you're Canterbury.
Yes, I am Canterbury, and I don't want to speak for Otago Regional Council, but I can tell you
that we do have those.
that there are
I kind of
tsunami
hope that they're
evacuation
there.
zones. Yes, they are. And if you want to see them, you can go to the Otago Civil Defence Emergency Management webpage.
Which is one of the things that Otago Regional Council are in charge of, making sure that that's there.
Yep. So you can go to their webpage, and you can find lots of information about tsunamis, including the tsunami evacuation zones for Otago.
Yeah, because that's really, it's quite useful information.
Well, it's handy to know before you need them, Dr. Barb.
And to know where to get it. I think so. Like, there's no point in having an evacuation zone where you're evacuating people to a place that's going to get hit.
And it's also useful to know where they are before it's 3 a.m. and you've just felt a long or strong earthquake, and then you're thinking, oh, am I in a zone or am I not? And it's 3 a.m, you've got your big fat fingers on your smartphone.
I know, but everybody has as well. And it's it really slows down the connections.
Yes, it does. And it's just not useful. It is much more useful if you can know where the zones are beforehand.
And the other thing that I noticed last time we had a tsunami warning on the harbour is that Radio New Zealand sort of said it's the East Coast, it's everywhere from here right down to the Catlins, not from here, I'm pointing to the top of the East Coast of the North Island. And it was just like kind of this whole big brush stroke, but it was never really clear. Like, are you supposed to, like, that was like 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, am I, like, how urgent is this? Is this one? And there was like kind of like no feedback later on to say, oh, actually, we've decided that the Otago Harbour is not a risky place.
Can you clarify exactly the date of that occurrence, Dr. Barb? Because
I can't remember it off the top of my head.
We've had quite a few tsunami warnings.
Yes, it was some
late.
time ago, but it was just,
this might have been the Kaikoura earthquake in 2016. That was, that happened at midnight, and Radio New Zealand was putting out tsunami warnings over the radio. So it would have been in those early hours of the morning that those sort of messages were coming through.
Yeah.
I guess there's a couple of key things to remember with tsunamis. So the first one is if you feel a long or a strong earthquake, that could be an earthquake that has happened quite close to our shores. It might be on land and not create a tsunami, but it might be just offshore.
Sure.
You don't know that, and it may have generated a tsunami.
Right.
So in that instance, we want people to evacuate
quickly
from the zones that they've already had a look at previously, to get out of the way.
Right.
Now, there won't be time for an official warning to be issued in that sort of scenario. So that's why we want people to act straight away. And then it will be followed up with official warnings.
Okay.
But they for those warnings to be issued, we need to actually have identified that a tsunami's been generated, and someone's actually got to go through some processes. And so it takes a while. We don't want people sitting around waiting for that.
Right.
We want people to actually move.
Yeah.
There's other tsunamis that arrive from across the Pacific Ocean.
Right, so they're coming all the way from Chile or Argentina
or Japan or Russia.
That whole sort of ring of fire around the Pacific.
That whole Pacific Rim. Yep. In that case, you will not feel the earthquake.
Right, because it's way over there.
Because it's way over there.
Yeah.
In that case, we have, in the order of like more than 12 hours for it to get here. So there is time for us to issue official warnings in that case. So then we've got a much better idea of what's on its way, if anything, and we can give people
and that sort of gives you time to like look at the models and that you've already done and say, okay, well, it's this big and it's coming in this direction and it's likely to hit. And there's monitors across the ocean, is that right?
Yes, there are. So there's things called dart buoys. They're open ocean tsunami gauges, I suppose.
Are there any dart
call
girls?
Them. Oh. Oh, dear.
It's B-O-U-Y, isn't it?
It is. It's not, yes.
I know that, really.
So they're pretty cool, those things. They can detect, what they detect is the change in pressure on the sea floor as the tsunami wave or waves pass over the pressure sensor. So they can tell, oh, hang on, there was a little bit of extra water on top of me then. And they send that information back to whoever owns the dart buoys. There's dart buoys all around the Pacific Ocean owned by different countries, but all of the countries, and we own several of them as well,
right,
up to the kind of northeast of New Zealand.
And they sort of all go into the same system and everybody shares the data.
So we all share the data with each other, and that gets all put into the Pacific Tsunami Warning Centre, which is based in Hawaii. And so they can collate all that data and they put out sort of tsunami information bulletins for us to base our warnings on.
That's very cool. Now, can I ask a question about the ones that are really offshore in New Zealand that happen really fast? So you feel the earthquake, the long, slow, and then the earthquake causes that straight offshore, that tsunami.
Yeah.
And then the ones that are coming across the Pacific, are they actually different, those tsunamis?
No, they're not different.
So it's not that they're smaller or bigger, or you can still get a really big one from across, even though it's come across the whole of the Pacific.
Yeah, because they retain their energy. They're really good at keeping their energy as they move across the ocean.
It's such a big distance. It seems like it should
such a big distance.
Like get smaller as it comes.
I mean, it does a little bit. It does attenuate and get smaller a bit, but the seafloor in between, say, South America and here does some pretty interesting things to the tsunami waves as well, and it can amplify them in in particular places, and especially the near shore bathymetry. Sorry, that's not that easy to say. That has a huge impact on the size of the waves that you might get. So we see really localised effects in certain parts of New Zealand.
So when you say the bathymetry, you mean
the shape of the seafloor.
Right on our New Zealand seafloor.
Yes.
Right.
Yep. So even if we've got something coming from South America, the shape of the seafloor right offshore of New Zealand can affect what those waves do when they get here.
Right, and it's presumably the angle that the wave, whatever, hits it at as well, has some sort of interaction there.
Yeah.
Which makes it more complicated to model exactly what's going to happen, where it's going to happen. And that was one
of the things I was going to say before too, when you were like, can't we just model? And yes, we can just model, but I tell you what, there's so many sources of uncertainty in those models because tsunamis are so complex.
Because it's where it comes from and how big it is.
Yeah, it's like how big was the earthquake?
Yeah.
Where exactly on the big fault did the earthquake happen? And then, what's in between where it happened and where you are? What's the tide doing when it arrives?
Gosh, does the tide make a difference?
Well,
it makes sense because if the tide's in, it's already got a lot of water there to push up, hasn't it?
Yes. So it's worth bearing in mind that a tsunami is a series of waves. So it's many waves coming in over, many hours. And so at some point, your tide, and so the interaction with the tides, it can make quite a difference as to what
and that's interesting as well, because we do tend to think of a tsunami as one big wave.
Indeed. And that's the other thing.
And that's because it used to be called a tidal wave.
Yeah. Do you know, people have called them tidal waves, and the official name for them used to be seismic sea waves, which I quite like.
Seismic sea waves.
I quite like it.
Yeah.
I don't know, but where else would you get a wave except for in the sea? That sounds redundant to me.
Or in a lake, but we can get onto that. But the other thing to note, though, that I do want to stress about tsunamis is that, the way we use the word tsunami these days, it makes you think like enormous wave. But tsunamis, like earthquakes, come in all sizes.
Shapes and sizes,
yeah. So a lot, or most of the tsunamis that we will get travelling to us are actually really small, and they won't inundate land at all.
Right.
But the thing about tsunamis is that no matter how sort of tall the waves are, the waves are very long. That's what characterises a tsunami. It's a very long wave. Okay. So it's got a lot of water in those waves.
Right.
So even if they're not very high, they still have a lot of power and a lot of energy because they're travelling very quickly and they're long with lots of water in them.
And how does that impact us as people?
So often what we will have is a tsunami advisory that is issued by the National Emergency Management Agency. And what that means is we don't think that the tsunami is going to inundate land. You don't have to evacuate your house, but we want you to stay out of the water and out of places, especially like river mouths
Yes, where that water gets kind of bottlenecked,
Yes,
and then it
that's
gets that
right.
kind of force into it.
Yep, so we want people staying out of the water because you can still get really super strong currents. I've spoken to a couple of people that were in the 2010 Chile tsunami who went out and they were diving or whatever.
Oh, I can see that. You get shifted a lot, couldn't you, if you were actually in the water?
Yeah, and they got swept up against rocks and all sorts just because of those really strong currents. So it's really more of a, you don't have to panic, you don't have to evacuate, but just please don't get in the water. And
that's actually really interesting because you don't I'm not really a water person even though I live next to the harbour, but I don't immediately think about the effect of the tsunami in the water. Like for me, it's the effect of the tsunami once it hits the land. And we all see those pictures of Japan getting hit by that massive tsunami with boats on the top of houses.
Oh my gosh,
and things.
Terrible. But even those smaller ones, and they're really important for port operations as well because they can interfere with port operations where you've got fluctuating water levels.
And
so
I can see that around the
important.
harbour as well because it's going to have an effect on the Otago harbour and, there's lots of people in boats and kayaking and things in the harbour and they might think, the wave's not going to hit me, it's not going to be... But it's actually the amount of water and what it's doing to the currents and things inside there. And places like Brighton Mouth and Tyree Mouth.
Yeah, and so that's why, we'll always put those sort of advisories out. And we're not trying to panic people, but...
Information is great. Information.
So can I ask a question about length because I'm spatially challenged? So if I'm standing in the beach looking at the water, are you talking about the length along the shore or the length out to sea?
That's a really good question, Trudi. I'm talking length out to sea.
Thank you. Because that makes sense because then if the water's coming in, you could be dragged out a long way because there's a lot behind it. Yeah.
So you think of a normal sea wave, it just sort of comes in and then it goes out. Yeah. And those have what we call a period, so in between the wave crests, a time in between the wave crests of, a few seconds in, out. But when a tsunami arrives, it's just pretty much in for ages. And then out. And so it ends up looking kind of like the tide's coming in really quickly. Right. That's why it used to be called a tidal wave. Ah. And then the tide goes out again really quickly.
And does it go out a long way as well?
It can do.
Like if the length of it coming in, is that equivalent to the length of it going out?
Yeah, generally.
More or less.
Yeah.
Talking broad strokes here.
Broad strokes, yeah. So you might have a period of, say, 20, 30 minutes in between those waves.
Oh, wow. That is long.
So they're long waves. Oh. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good to quantify long there.
Yes.
Because even when you said long, I wasn't thinking 20 minutes.
Yeah, some of them are very long.
Okay. Well, that's
interesting. And it kind of is all physics, isn't it? It's all waves, like light waves and sound waves.
So you have all the waves in the sea.
It is. It's all physics.
That's
exactly what it is. And the other interesting thing of note too, whilst we're talking about the water going out, is that it doesn't always go out first. It depends which bit of the wave you're getting first. So sometimes the water will recede first. People often think, if there's a tsunami coming, the water will go out a long way.
Because you hear people say that, oh my gosh, the water's gone out. I knew it was a tsunami. Granddad said run up to the beach because it was a tsunami because it happened 100 years ago.
Yeah. It depends what side of the tsunami wave you are sort of on.
Wow, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so in some parts of the coast it will arrive... it won't go out first. The up bit of the wave will arrive first and it'll just start coming in.
Wow.
And if you're on the sort of other side of the fault that generated the tsunami, you get the down bit of the wave first, and so it will go out. But don't always rely on that as a...
Okay, then that's a good tip.
And actually, if you felt that earthquake, you shouldn't be standing there waiting.
I mean, I think that's one of the main things is, if you feel an earthquake, don't be on the beach. Don't be in the water.
That's a pretty good rule for life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can see that. Hey, I'm going to just move the conversation on to other geohazards.
I could talk about tsunamis for all day.
because I did know that you also specialise in earthquakes.
Yes.
Which are connected to tsunamis.
Yes.
Because I'm right, aren't I, that all tsunamis start as an earthquake?
Not all of them, most of them.
I know. Is there some that start as landslides?
Yes, some start as landslides, some start as volcanic eruptions.
Of course, yes.
Because there's one of the lakes in Milford, there was a big landslide that can...
Oh, yes, you were going to say about tsunamis on lakes.
Oh, I was. Well, we've done a bit of work with, ESNZ, who used to be NIWA, looking at...
ESNZ.
Earth Science New Zealand. Yeah. We did some work with them on Lake Tekapo in the Southern Alps, looking at the potential for lake tsunamis in that lake.
Because, of course, Tekapo is right at the end of the lake.
It is.
Quite close to the lake.
Yeah. So there is the potential there as well for a tsunami to be generated in that lake, probably from an earthquake, from an underwater landslide generated by an earthquake that would then create a tsunami.
Wow!
And because a tsunami is then just a displacement of water brought around by different kinds of events.
Yeah.
Not just.
But the Southern Alps. Fairly well known for their earthquakes, one
That's
might
right,
say.
Yeah. So again, our message, if you're on a lake shore, and this applies, Queenstown, Wanaka, is again just move away from the lake shore.
Right.
Should you feel?
Yeah. When you say move away, I mean, what sort of distances are we talking there when we say move away?
That's a good question because we haven't been able to so far really quantify how far to move because we haven't. It's a pretty new area of study and we've looked at some scenarios but not all. And the other complicating factor, especially for somewhere like Lake Tekapo, is that it's a hydro lake. So it is controlled. The lake level is controlled to some degree and there could be a 9-metre difference in the lowest lake level or the highest lake level depending on how much water's in it. So that 9 metres makes a huge difference to whether if you got a tsunami on that lake, whether
you'd have to know
it's
that
full
level when you're doing your modelling at that very time of the event.
Well, yes. So, it's just
another complicating factor.
Yeah, and so we're not entirely sure. So our message is just to get sort of at least off the lake beach.
Yeah.
Right. Now, this is... I don't want to be accused of disinformation here, so I just want you to set my mind at ease that my irrational fear of being in Alexandra, which is below the Clyde Dam...
Yes.
Is that irrational?
Look, that's a good question.
Because I feel like if there's a tsunami...
That gets into your own kind of personal risk tolerance as well. In general, I don't want to talk for the dam owners. In general, our dams perform very well in earthquakes.
Because they knew that New Zealand's prone to earthquakes.
Yeah, they're very well engineered.
Right.
Especially the Clyde Dam. It's got special features in it that make it resilient to earthquakes.
Right.
But one of the possibilities is a landslide into the reservoir that could overtop a dam, and that's for any dam.
Yeah.
But also those slopes along the lake there, the reservoir, are highly monitored and engineered because of those landslides. They're known about. And there's a lot of work that goes into reducing that risk.
Right.
And
presumably if something does...
into engineering them, like they scraped it all back to reduce that risk. That's why it looks kind of weird. Yeah.
Yes.
And presumably they're really well monitored at the moment. So if something was happening, they would sound some big siren and say, "Don't stand next to the bottom of the dam."
That's a little bit out of my wheelhouse. Okay. I wouldn't like to comment on that.
We'll slide right away from that and move on
Let's move on.
We were at Kaikoura on a family holiday, and the family joke was that because my husband can't swim, he was going to sleep on a low with it tied to his leg.
That is black humour at its worst.
I know. It amused the rest of us.
Earthquakes.
Yes. What do you want to know?
There's all these new standards about earthquakes, and there's been this argy-bargy in the news about Dunedin and the earthquake-prone building standards. Have you got comment on that? Are you allowed to make comment on that?
I probably could, but I won't, because that's sort of also a little bit, that's getting more into the earthquake engineering side of things.
Right.
Like structural engineering.
Oh, yeah, fair
and, remember I was a coloured pencil
Right.
person.
Yes, no.
Not so much I found it very difficult to stay awake during my soil mechanics lectures.
So should we not talk about landslides then?
Yeah, we won't talk about landslides either.
Yeah.
But I can talk about earthquakes in general.
Yeah. No, what I was thinking was that later on we will get, is it David? Who's at GNS in to talk about landslides specifically. So listeners, don't worry.
Yes. And he
we're
can
going
talk about dam work as well.
Yeah, we're going to skip over landslides and dam work, and we're going to get David in because he's already agreed to do an interview. So we'll bring him in, just have this as a signalling that we're going forward, and we'll just go, what would you like to talk about?
Wow, key messages with earthquakes.
Yeah.
Do you know, one of the interesting things I guess that springs to mind for Dunedin is, we've done a lot across the South Island. There's been a lot of, what's the word? But sort of public education. I don't really like that term, but around the Alpine fault scenario. And I think people in Dunedin feel like, oh, wow, that's actually going to be something really terrible for us. And they think that the damage in Dunedin is going to be much more than it probably will be. And I think one thing to note about the Alpine fault scenario for Dunedin is that by the time the shaking reaches us from the Alpine fault, I mean, we're looking at a magnitude 8 earthquake.
That's so a big one.
That's large.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree. But once it gets to us in Dunedin, the shaking isn't going to be really intense. It will go for 2, 3, maybe even 4 minutes in some places.
Right.
But it will be sort of more moderate shaking. But the thing to bear in mind is that, I suppose, are the indirect effects, what they will be on our city, in terms of, the power will likely go out because the power is probably going to go out everywhere.
Right.
So we're still going to potentially end up with power issues. We'll end up with food shortages because of transport links being broken elsewhere. And also we're going to have to take in people from
refugees.
From Queenstown. Our hospital's going to be busy with people coming in from elsewhere because we won't be so badly affected.
Right.
We are going to have to look after
and possibly
a lot of those
water might
people.
also get affected.
Hopefully not so much in Dunedin because we've got a fairly robust water network.
Right.
So, potentially. And I should say we do have other earthquake sources in the South Island, and some of them are quite close to Dunedin.
Yeah,
so
and I mean there are a couple of big faults, biggish faults, not Southern Alps fault size.
Yep. There are faults in Otago that are capable of generating, magnitude 7+ earthquakes. The thing about them is that they tend to not move quite as often as their northern cousins in Canterbury and Marlborough. So statistically speaking, our earthquake shaking hazard in Dunedin is pretty much as low as it gets in the South Island.
Right.
Which is great.
Which is great for us.
If you wanted to get lower, you'd have to move to like Auckland or Northland in the North Island to get a lower earthquake hazard.
All the time up there.
So, I don't know.
Pick your hazard.
Yeah, exactly.
Pick your hazard.
So, it's not a bad place to be in Dunedin, but there is, there's always a chance that we will get a decent earthquake.
I guess that's where it goes back to those civil emergency that are on the ORC page. And I know there they have, and they do try and keep saying it, have some collected, have some water stored, have, a torch, have a battery pack for your cell phone. So because the cell towers do go out, they get overloaded. So just having a charged battery pack for your phone.
And people steal the batteries to run other things.
Yes.
Naughty people. That sounds like a family thing that's yours.
Sorry.
Yeah,
But yeah, there's those sort of
up north.
Yeah, the whole preparedness thing is quite interesting because
Yeah.
I find, we're busy ladies, aren't we?
I know.
And, getting prepared for an emergency is not necessarily at the top of our list of things to do.
Which is crazy because it's something that's important, but it's not really urgent.
Yeah. So the way I look at it is, because I'm guilty of probably not being as, totally Dad's army prepared as I could be.
Yeah, me too.
Because I've got, a gazillion other things going through my head. But I think the important thing is to just think, right, what's sort of, maybe 3 really important things that I could do, and it's just going to make my life a little bit easier should something happen. It's all about making yourself a bit less uncomfortable if something does happen. And so, like you say, just have a little bit of water stored, and that can even just be when you've finished your 1.5 litre of tonic water.
Yeah, fill it up with tap water.
You just rinse it out, fill it up. Don't use a milk bottle because that might have nasties in it still.
Yeah.
But, just fizzy bottles, whatever, just fill a few of those up, know where they are, put them somewhere, sensible, know where they are.
Yeah.
That would be one good thing.
And it's
you
really
could do.
easy thing that people can do. Just have,
Yeah,
some fizzy bottles filled with water and stick them in the corner of the garage or, out of the way in the carport, something like that.
And then when it's daylight saving, you can think, I might just go and, refill those.
Yeah.
The other really useful thing to do is just know your neighbours.
Yeah, which seems really, overly simple. And but I think sometimes it's the most useful thing.
Yeah, because between you, between a group of neighbours, you've often got, enough
Things.
enough things to keep you going for a few days.
And having your medications, I think, is a good thing. Having a stash, just take one little thing with 3 days worth of medication and putting it aside so you've always got 3 days medication.
Yeah.
I don't know why I'm saying 3 days.
Well, it's because that was the amount of days that's been peddled for many a year.
It's because Easter's just happened. Everything happens in 3 days.
This is true. 3's a nice number, isn't it? But really, these days, we're sort of saying more like 7.
Right.
Depending on...
Okay.
Yeah. Obviously, it's dependent on the situation and what actually happens. But if you've got 7 days worth,
if you've got
things,
medication
you're doing well.
that you are reliant on every day that you have to take, just having that little bit set aside as a reserve. So if you can't go to the pharmacy, if you can't go to the doctor, if you have to evacuate for whatever reason, if you can't get out, that's actually quite useful.
Yeah. Yeah,
and knowing where it is, of course, remembering where these things are is equally as important. And I was thinking about the food. You know how there's always you have 7 days worth of food, and that can be whatever. But it cost of living and everything.
Indeed.
But what I was thinking is that, and I haven't enacted this yet, hand on heart, but I was thinking it's as easy as canned soups, really.
Oh, totally.
Or packet soups.
Yeah.
And if you had 7 days worth and you just had them in a box, and then when the can drive comes around at Christmas, if you just donate them and then get another set.
That's a very good idea, Dr. Barb.
Then they don't expire.
Yes. That's an excellent idea. I think
and
we
it's
should all
like
be
a
doing
trigger
that.
for doing it, because I think that's the thing that you were saying about daylight savings. And I think that's a big thing, is just like having an annual trigger where you check your fire alarms, your smoke alarms, and you check that your water's filled up, and that's just a couple of really basic things, and then you're sorted.
Yep.
Not
Absolutely.
sorted.
Well, no, but
you're a whole step ahead of where you are if you've got nothing.
Exactly, you're more sorted than you were, and that's great. So,
what do they say? Don't let perfection be the drive for perfection be the enemy of good or done or something. I can't remember how the
I know
saying
what
goes.
you mean, but I can't think of it either. But the way I like to see it is, because sometimes you see all these checklists of things that you should have, and it's a bit overwhelming.
Yes,
and I
feel
just
like
think,
that. And then I just go, I'll do it some other time. It's too much for now.
Exactly. Like my brain can only cope with about 3 things. So
3 things. It's the same as Easter.
if you just choose 3 things, or even one thing, you are one thing better off than you were. So just do something.
Yeah.
And it's always going to be the driver. Like during one of the Gulf Wars, I went out and bought a big, large can of instant coffee because I couldn't bear to live with the same husband who would have gone away on the Lilo if we couldn't get coffee.
Yeah, fair enough.
So you got it, yeah.
Just the other things that are handy to have, though, is torches and a radio.
And an analog radio.
Old-fashioned battery.
And batteries.
Or even wind-up radio. We've got one of those.
Oh, yeah, they have those cool wind-up ones. Can I put in another thing there?
Yes.
Plastic bags. Some big plastic bags because they're really good if the plumbing goes out.
Yes.
And also you can just put, if there's water and stuff everywhere, you can put dry clothes in them and they stay dry. And the other thing is garden gloves. Just gloves, because if stuff gets icky, but also if you have to move stuff, like your hands get hurt and then you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like just throw a pair of garden gloves in.
Okay, I think that's enough. We've overwhelmed everyone.
We've overwhelmed people, but sorry.
No,
but it's stuff that's around, right?
Could I just also put in a plug, though, for your local community resilience group? So
we have one?
Well, you may do.
How do we know if we do?
You should check. So again, Otago Civil Defence Emergency Management website, otagocdem.govt.nz.
We'll put that in the episode description, folks. Don't worry, you don't have to remember that.
So you can go in there, and what's useful is that these community resilience groups are forming in some areas, and they just work together so that communities can look after themselves during an emergency, because people sometimes think that civil defence is a group of people just sitting around waiting for something to happen and then they're going to come and sort you out.
And that's actually not.
No, it's not. Yeah. Civil defence is sort of a way of working together. It's sort of more of a structure. And so lots of different organisations feed into civil defence, including your local community. So you've got to be civil defence for each other as well in an emergency.
I know that, for instance, Aramoana group have their own kind of plan, because they do quite often get cut off. Yeah. And West Harbour has a plan there somehow.
That's right.
And community boards do have some sort of role in that.
Yeah.
So go along, and if you don't know, if you're in an area that has a community board in Dunedin, and you don't know what your plan is, go along to a community board meeting and demand that they tell you.
But sometimes the plan is just, those of us who can will get together at probably this location, if not that other location, and we will support each other. We will be a hub for people to exchange, needs or things that they can provide, and also just for information. Because remember, it's not just food and water that might be cut off, but also information.
And I'll tell you what, Otago Access Radio is a great place for that.
Indeed.
There's other radio stations as well, but because Otago Access Radio is here in Dunedin, if there's ever an emergency, they will keep, they will go live and they will get all the information straight away, and it comes straight to here from the bunker, and then it goes out, and that 105.4 FM is actually, it's a really easy solution to keep yourself on.
Yes. Yep.
But hopefully we don't have any huge things. Do you do work? Sorry, I've just got like 3 seconds left. I was just wondering if you do things that aren't quite so dramatic in your work.
In my work? Yeah. No, most of my work's fairly dramatic.
It is
or potentially fairly
it's
dramatic.
It's all that kind of like preparing for dramatic stuff, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it kind of is. Yeah. I mean, yeah, but it's just so, I love my job because it is just so interesting. I get to work with fantastic people. People in emergency management are great. At all the councils and all the scientists I get to work with, people are great, and then I get to actually help people in the community understand their hazards better and what they can do about it. So it's just a fantastic job.
Hey, thank you very much for coming along.
It's been a pleasure.
Been wonderful. This has been the OI podcast with Helen Jack. I'm Dr Barb.
And I'm just Trudi.
And, Mate wa.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You've been listening to the OI Podcast, the shout-out for the arts, sciences and Mataranga Māori.
You can support this podcast by becoming a member of the OI. Check out the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences on Facebook or our website.
If you'd like to listen again to this episode or others from the series, look for the OI Podcast on OAR FM's website, oar.org.nz.
Brought to you by the Otago Institute for Arts and Sciences, the Otago branch of the Royal Society of New Zealand.
This podcast was produced by OAR FM Dunedin with support from New Zealand On the Air.